Hi, Raul here, and I'm back with another video. In this video, I will be sharing with you my top 10 stock photography bestseller images. I'm defining a bestseller as highest income producer rather than highest number of sales or downloads. I will critique my images and attempt to understand why they have become bestsellers. So why is this important, you might ask? It's important because although there's no one main formula to a successful stock portfolio, there do exist some critical ingredients that can be used to create and maintain a successful stock portfolio. All right, intro please. What is it about our bestseller images that attract the buyers? If you are a stock contributor, I'm certain you have a few top sellers that are complete surprises. And perhaps you have other images that you thought were going to be bestsellers, but they haven't performed as well as you really expected them to perform. So what's really happening here? In my top tips for stock photography video, I covered the topic of commercial value. Commercial value is that critical ingredient that every stock photo needs to become a bestseller. Our top sellers obviously have that commercial value ingredient that's pushing them to the top. So I'm going to review my top 10 bestsellers and document the essential elements that I believe are making them successful. Perhaps you can use this information to help drive new sales to your stock portfolio as well. Okay, let's take a look at my top 10 bestsellers. Starting at number 10 is this food shot. Ironically, this image prompted me to make a separate video on the topic of shooting food for stock. I won't spend much time on this image, so check out my other video where I cover the topic of shooting food in greater detail. However, in summary, this image has generated over $1,250 in income and has sold over 1,500 times. I can buy a lot of sausages for $1,250. So the bottom line is that food sells. All right, moving on to my number 9 bestseller is this cityscape shot from Miami Beach. Love Miami Beach. This skyward shot of Art Deco hotels and royal palm trees along popular Collins Avenue was featured on the Shutterstock contributor blog. So what makes this image successful? In my opinion, it's all about the angle of view. I laid on the ground and I pointed the camera skyward. I often see photographers standing and pointing the camera straight ahead. You might get a nice shot, but everyone else is probably taking that same exact shot. So instead of taking the same shot, get creative and look up. You might be missing some great shots by simply not looking up to the sky. I took this shot with my Fuji X-T1 and my Rokinon 8mm f2.8 fisheye lens with the aperture set at f8. I love this fisheye lens. You can take some really creative shots with this tiny lens, which I have it right here. Take a look. It's really small. I highly recommend this manual focus lens. The key with this image was greater depth of field to capture the detail throughout the image. And that's pretty simple with a fisheye lens since basically everything is going to be in focus. Composition is also very important since the fisheye will capture a very large angle of view, 180 degrees to be exact. So it's important to selectively bring in the details that help provide symmetry and balance to the image. The scene is begging for detail, so bokeh or lack of bokeh is not of any significance. In fact, in this particular scenario, bokeh is bad. Advertisers want details, so that's why this image is so popular with travel-related websites, blogs, and print ads as well. This image has generated over $1,400 in income and has sold almost 1,600 times. Hey, that is not too shabby. All right, moving on to my number 8 bestseller is this lifestyle portrait shot. I used one of my best friends as a model in this shot. Hispanic marketing and advertising continues to grow in the US and Central and South America. My friend is from the Dominican Republic and he is very handsome. I've used him on plenty of shoots. I wasn't surprised when the images from this shoot immediately started to sell. This shot was taken with my Canon 5D Mark II and 85mm f1.8 portrait lens. I used off-camera flash with a Canon Speedlight in a 25-inch foldable Lasolite softbox. Honestly, I wasn't sure this image would be accepted because the focus was slightly off. I thought, oh no, I got this great picture and it's not going to be accepted. I knew it was a great image, but I had my doubts. I slightly sharpened the eyes and luckily it was accepted by all the agencies. Thank God. I captured the image at a diagonal with the subject slightly below me since he was sitting on a step. I shot it at 2.8, so there's some pleasing background bokeh. The selling points of this image are a handsome Hispanic man, he's got a really nice smile, and it's a generic outdoor location. Basically, racial diversity is the key selling point here. The image has generated over $1,500 in income and has sold over 1,700 times. Not too bad. All right, moving on to my number 7 bestseller is this lifestyle portrait of my favorite model in the world, which happens to be my very own daughter. This image is from a shoot we did to capture some commercial shots for her portfolio. My daughter was and still is a model and actress. She's appeared in numerous print ads and TV commercials. I'm very, very proud of her. So I've been blessed to have my beautiful daughter available to me in my stock portfolio, and she's a natural in front of the camera. She knows how to pose. She just knows all the angles. She's awesome. This image was one of over 70 images in my portfolio from that particular shoot. This image falls into the teenager lifestyle category. This was an outdoor shot, but the location is basically indistinguishable. The image was shot with my Canon 5D Mark II, and I used the Canon 20-40-70 f2.8L lens and a silver reflector. A very simple setup. It's again another downward angle shot with some steps in the background. So the background was has virtually no impact on the image. So why is this image a bestseller? This image is all about the subject. She's looking directly at the camera and has a very happy expression and a beautiful smile. So what are the selling points of this image? Well, obviously, first off, we have a beautiful young woman. Bottom line, beauty sells, plain and simple. The downward angle also makes her a little more inviting. My daughter also is of mixed race origins with Hispanic and Eastern European heritage, so her look appeals to many buyers. Her pictures are frequent sellers in the East Asian and Indian markets, as well as the Hispanic markets. She's been on numerous billboards in India and throughout the world. Again, racial diversity sells here. The image has generated over $1,700 in income and has sold just over 2,000 times. God bless you. I love my daughter. Moving on to my number 6 bestseller is another lifestyle portrait. And this image happens to be a self-portrait. I was scouting a location near my home that is very popular for portrait and wedding photographers. I had a family portrait shoot scheduled the following weekend, so I wanted to take some test shots in preparation for that shoot. You always should scout your locations in practice. I shot this with my Canon 5D Mark II and my Canon 7200 f2.8L lens, which is my favorite Canon portrait lens. I used off-camera flash with a Canon Speedlight in a 25-inch foldable Lasolite softbox. Again, another simple setup. So what makes this image a bestseller? The image was shot at a slight diagonal, again, which I believe produces a nice effect. The image is also nicely backlit with pleasing background bokeh. I really wasn't expecting a bestseller from the scouting test shoot, so this was definitely a lucky bonus for me. It's ironic that I've earned more income from this single shot than the family portrait shot the following weekend. This image has appeared in numerous senior dating sites and other publications. I'm constantly getting messages from friends that have seen me on TV as well as online advertisements. So what's the takeaway from this shot? Basically, don't be afraid to use yourself as a model. And it also helps just to be a little bit handsome. The image has generated just over $2,000 in income and has sold over 2,100 times. I think I earned like $400 from the family portrait shoot. So I have another video covering one of my selfie stock photography shoots, so check it out as well. Who says stock photography doesn't pay when you can use yourself as a model? It's really easy. All right, moving on to my number 5 bestseller is this interiors image. I love this shot. I talked about this image in my top tips video as well, covering and another video covering the strategy of cropping images for stock. You can check out those videos if you have a chance. This image and other kitchen images from this commercial assignment have been a huge success for my portfolio. This assignment was for a kitchen designer that wanted to showcase her best kitchen designs. I have no doubt this image will eventually become my number 1 bestseller, probably within a year or two. This image, along with its other cropped versions, has generated just over $2,100 in income and has sold over 2,400 times in just about 2 years. So why is this image such a great seller? Number 1, it's simply a beautiful kitchen. The combination of the clean white cabinets with a blue colored island is striking. You also have some gold accents. It's really a beautiful kitchen. When I arrived to the shoot, the countertops were cluttered with holiday decorations and various kitchen utensils and appliances. I immediately instructed my client to declutter and remove the majority of the items. I wanted to showcase the design of the kitchen and remove all of the distracting elements. That's so important when you're doing these interiors. If I had not done that, this image would not be selling at its current rate. The rest was easy. Just shoot the beauty in front of me and start collecting the cash. I shot with my Canon 5D RS and the Canon 5D SR and my Zeiss 21mm f2.8 Distagon lens, which produces distortion-free sharp images. I used a flash ambient lighting technique to capture multiple exposures, and then I combined them in Photoshop for the final versions. I normally wouldn't do this for a stock image, but since this was a high-end commercial assignment, I wanted the best results possible for my client. I'm very happy with the results, and the high sales volume really backs me up. All right, moving on to my number 4 bestseller is this colorful abstract background. This was another total surprise bestseller image. I shot this with my Canon 5D Mark II, and I used my Tamron 90mm f2.8 macro lens, the original 2.8 version. I now have the newer stabilized version, and it's a spectacular macro lens. I highly recommend this lens if you're in need of a macro lens. So what is this image? I was considering creating stock illustrations, but I didn't think my artistic skills were good enough, nor did I have any experience with any illustration applications such as Adobe Illustrator. So I thought perhaps I could shoot an abstract type image that could pass as an illustration. And lo and behold, that's basically what I did. I jotted down some ideas, and then I remembered I had some heavy cardstock paper that I had previously purchased for my daughter. She used that paper to make some handwritten invitations for a party she was hosting. So I came up with the idea to fold the colored paper in different shapes and arrange them together placed on top of a black background. I used black foam core that I use as flags for my studio shots. I then shot them from above, and I lit them with 2 Paul Buff Einstein strobes from each side, one on each side. The end result was some really cool looking images that almost look like computer generated illustrations. I'm kind of proud of myself. I was really creative there. This image was the most popular from the shot, from that particular shoot, and several more shoots that followed with new shapes and lighting. The images immediately started to sell as soon as I uploaded them to the agencies. Shutterstock chose this image as one of the promoted images on the company website, so I got super lucky there. As soon as it hit Shutterstock's landing page, I started to get a minimum of 50 sales per day over a period of a month or longer. The image has generated over $2,500 in income and has sold over 2,800 times. I spent under $10 on that package of colored cardstock paper. So this was probably one of my most profitable stage stock shoots. So what are the takeaways here? Basically, you don't need a large investment in props and materials to create a bestseller abstract image. Sometimes the simplest materials can be found lying around your house. If you own a macro lens, I suggest you experiment with different objects within your house and use natural lighting or strobes if you have them available. Your only limitation will be your potential lack of creativity, really. So tap into your creative spirit on the right side of your brain, and I guarantee you'll get some really nice creative abstract images. All right, moving on to my number 3 bestseller is this family lifestyle portrait featuring my beloved daughter and my late father, who passed away in 2016. Miss him every single day. I took this image during the Christmas holiday season in 2010. This was not a planned stock shoot. Like most Hispanics, we have a tradition to celebrate Christmas Eve with a family dinner that we call Noche Buena, versus a traditional Christmas Day dinner. As usual, I brought my camera to take some family snapshots. My camera at the time was the original Canon 5D that had a 13 megapixel sensor, and my lens was the Canon 24-70 2.8L lens. I took this particular shot with an on-camera Canon Speedlight, bouncing the light off the ceiling. Honestly, the lighting in this image is really, really bad. Regardless, the image started selling as soon as I uploaded it to the agencies. So why is this a bestseller? I believe this is a bestseller simply because of the love between my father and daughter. My daughter adored my father and he adored her as well. There are no fake emotions in this shot. This is an image capturing true love, and that's why it continues to sell to this very day. Every day this sells 5 or 6 times. The image was shot in a home setting, so that also adds some appeal with the background, with the bookcase there. So if you have the opportunity to photograph family members, take advantage and capture those timeless, precious moments. Images of real people are preferred these days. The more natural, the better. I guarantee they will sell. Have your family members sign those model releases and start photographing them. The image has generated over $2,700 in income and has sold just over 3,000 times. It's great. Moving on to my number 2 bestseller is this image from Crandon Park Beach in Key Biscayne in Miami. I shot this image in January of 2012 with my Fujifilm X100. I really find it hard to believe this is my number 2 image, but hey, it is. I have a yearly tradition to start the new year with a beach shoot. I'm invigorated by the smell of the ocean and the beautiful beach landscapes. And since I live in Miami with great warm weather, there's no better place than the beach in the wintertime. My X100 was relatively new at the time, so I decided to take what could be, some really cool looking beach landscapes with this little 35mm equivalent view from the X100, which provides very little distortion. It's a really, really good camera. I highly recommend it. I ended up with a couple dozen pics that I thought had potential for stock sales. This image became very popular with immediate sales. And what really helped accelerate the sales is that it was also featured on Shutterstock's website. I consider it to be an average looking beach image, so I was really surprised that it really was so successful. The image has a tropical feel to it with palm trees blowing in the wind. You've got the light colored sand, there's the blueness of the ocean, and the sky is also nice and blue. You've got these cotton ball like white clouds, and then you have this lifeguard station that also plays a prominent role in the composition. And there's also a lifeguard in profile that is unrecognizable. Luckily, none of the agencies required a model release, or else I would have been in trouble. So if you take all of these elements in totality, I can see why this image has been successful. This image has been extensively used on travel-related websites and publications. Believe it or not, this image has generated nearly $2,900 in income and has sold just over 3,000 times. My original X100 cost about $1,200, so this image has paid for that camera over 2 times and more. All right, this leads to my #1 bestseller image. Drum roll, please. James, please play the drums. Thank you, James. Okay, my #1 bestseller is this architecture abstract from downtown Chicago. I referenced this image in my top tips for stock photography video. This image holds a very special place in my heart because it was originally rejected no less than 3 times by Shutterstock. Let's go back to the day I took this shot. It's important to reference why this image is so important to me by examining the steps I took leading up to the actual shot. I was vacationing in Chicago for a week in August. I believe it was 2011. On this particular day, I started very, very early, about 7 a.m., and my goal that day was to photograph as many skyscrapers as possible. I love to photograph skyscrapers. I was a man on a mission to capture skyscrapers. However, by 3 p.m., I was exhausted. I had taken well over 1,000 images walking all over the city, and I was ready to call it quits and head back to my friend's apartment that I was staying. I was ready for a cocktail. Happy hour was calling me. Raul, come to happy hour. A slightly dirty vodka martini with blue cheese olives was waiting at the bar with my name on it. But being the photographer addict that I am, as I started to head back, I glanced over my shoulder and I saw several more skyscrapers about half a mile away, right at the end of the downtown loop. I was tired, but the scent of skyscrapers gave me a burst of energy. So off I went to find the holy grail of skyscrapers. So I finally arrive and I find these really, really cool looking and modern looking skyscrapers. There were 4 skyscrapers and 1 smaller building that I believe was a parking garage, if I'm correct. So I started looking around for the best possible angles to shoot. As I mentioned before, I'm always looking skyward, up to the sky for inspiration. But I couldn't find the right vantage point due to extremely poor lighting. Don't you hate when that happens? There was hardly any light due to the direction of the westerly sun, and there were dark shadows being cast on most of the buildings, except one of them, I believe. So I'm standing there, I'm scratching my head, my neck is starting to hurt from all the never-ending looking up, and I immediately thought, well, this was a total waste of my time. And then I had one of those light bulb moments. Thank God that light bulb turned on. I thought, forget about the lack of light. Use the shadows to your advantage and converge the image to black and white or grayscale in post-production. When I looked through the viewfinder this time, my eyes immediately registered the image in black and white, and that's when the magic really started to happen. That's when I immediately became creative and I started capturing some great shots. So here's the image that I submitted to Shutterstock. And it was rejected 3 times. How could they reject the image? It didn't make any sense to me. It was so frustrating. I definitely got a few more gray hairs after that 3rd rejection. Finally, an agency reviewer with common sense approved the image on my 4th submittal. Thank you very much, reviewer, whoever you were. So how much have I earned from my #1 bestseller? Drum roll, please. James, please play the drums. Thank you. This image has generated just over $4,000 in income and has sold just over 4,100 times. This image paid for my Chicago trip and a few other trips as well. So what makes this image so successful? First of all, it's not your traditional skyscraper skyline view. If you do a search for skyscrapers, you will generally see the standard frontal downtown skyline viewpoint. That full frontal, sometimes silhouette approach that's very common and can become boring over time. The skyward angle gives a fresh, unique look. It also has a modern metropolis look, the Superman look, that is timeless with all the hard edges and diagonal lines. Plus, the conversion to black and white adds a layer of mystery with a tonality between the light and the shadow areas. And finally, the image has an abstract visual appeal. Because of all of these factors, the image has appeared in numerous websites and publications. I have seen it no less than 100 times every time I do a search. My last takeaway from this bestseller is that you should never lose hope on an image that you feel can and will be a bestseller. If all else fails, try converting it to black and white. Okay, let me know your thoughts on some of my bestsellers and if you have any stock images that have similar stories. I would love to hear some of your stock stories. Well, this wraps up this video. I know it was long, but I had a lot to cover. Thanks for viewing, and if you liked it, please hit that thumbs up. I have other videos on stock photography, so check them out for more valuable tips as well. I also hope you subscribe to my channel to give me the motivation to make more of these informational videos. Thanks, and catch you later.